All right, it's time to talk about the Red Wings. The Red Wings start training camp tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting year for the Yzerplan because he was talking to the media yesterday. He said that, he's not make or break for the playoffs. And I do agree with what he's saying. I do agree that the playoffs aren't make or break. I get what he's saying about you don't want to trade picks. You don't want to trade picks away to go all in on a playoff appearance. Now, you want to trade picks away when you're going all out for a Stanley Cup championship. But if you're going all out for a playoff appearance, that's just dumb. So I agree with him there. But we're at the most important year of the Yzerplan. A lot of people talk about the Yzerplan and they're like, look, he's doing a great job. He's developing. He's doing a great job drafting, getting players in here. He had a great draft with Mort Seider, the great draft with Lucas Raymond. Those guys are going to be studs. He obviously did the contract renewal to Dylan Larkin. He traded Tyler Bertuzzi. I know a lot of people are upset that they traded Tyler Bertuzzi, but Bertuzzi couldn't stay healthy. I've said all this on the Red Alert podcast. I do with Cindy Barry because she knows her hockey as well. But here's the thing. This is the most important time in the Yzerplan because of what this team is capable of. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for them to be better on the offensive end. I think there's a lot of opportunity for them to be better on the defensive end. I have a little bit of a question mark about the goaltending. Obviously, I like Ville Husso, but James Reimer and Alex Lyon, I'm a little concerned about the backup position because I think the backup goalie in the new age of the NHL is primarily one of the bigger positions that you can have in hockey. But when we talk about the Yzerplan and how it's been going, obviously it's been slow rolling because they haven't been able to get that key identified superstar. They made the trade for Alex DeBrincat this year to bring a goal scorer in. They brought Daniel Sprong in, who I think has a little bit of offensive upside. And if you look at his stats, he obviously did with the Seattle Kraken. But I look at this team and I think to myself, like, this could be a very, very good year for the Detroit Red Wings. I obviously have questions about the goaltending position. I think that could be a very, very critical issue. But I think that if the Detroit Red Wings are better on the offensive end, I think they could be a lot better of a team. Now, I want to harken back to the first part of the Red Wings year last year. The Red Wings had a problem last year from October, November, December, and then they started to get on a run in January, February, and March. Now, ultimately, in hockey, you can make up that little stretch where you're having trouble winning games. But when you go, I think they were 4-23 in the months of November and December. And then they went to January and they started playing lights out hockey, started playing better defensively, better offensively. And they started to go on. Now, obviously, there's two reasons for that. Lucas Raymond was having a sophomore slump. Mort Seider was having a sophomore slump, and they just weren't playing at the level that you expected them to play at. So I look at this Detroit Red Wings team as, I think, if you just go like 10 and 20, you go 10 and 20, you have a lower 500 record, you could potentially be in the playoffs. Now, a lot of people talk about the Atlantic Division and how tough it is. It's a very tough division. But you look at Boston, they're losing Bergeron, they're losing Krejci. They could be a team that could take a step back. You obviously got Buffalo and Ottawa that you're going to have to contend with in the Atlantic Division. You're going to have Toronto. Toronto's still going to be a good team. They have a really good team. Tampa Bay is going to be going nowhere. But ultimately, Florida's going to go nowhere. So ultimately, it's going to be how good did your talent get over the offseason. Now, this has to be a step forward for the Red Wings, not a step back. I thought last year after the trade deadline, it was a step back. I thought when they went to Ottawa and they got shelled by Ottawa in those two games, that was a step back. But ultimately, with this Red Wings team, they need to get out to a fast start because I always like what Scotty Bowman said. He always looks at his team at Thanksgiving time and kind of does a decipher of how good they are. I want the Detroit Red Wings to be a good team by Thanksgiving. Now, if you run into injury troubles in December and January and you're a little bit slow, if you get out to a good enough jump in October and November, you can kind of survive a little bit of a dip in December and January. but you got to get it going. So, a lot of people look at the NHL season, they go, it's a long season. It is a long season, but ultimately, in the beginning of the season, that's probably where you win or lose your playoff position, because last year we've seen it with the Detroit Red Wings. November and December were not kind to them. They won 4 games during that stretch. They were pretty awful. They didn't play good hockey. And those games that they lost, that they should have won, came back to haunt them when you got closer to the trade deadline, because you were potentially, at that point, closer to the trade deadline, you were like, I think you were just at the playoff mark. So if you would have won 6 games or 7 games, that would have put you in a better spot at the trade deadline than you were last year. So it's going to be an interesting year for the Detroit Red Wings, because they're going to have to play the right way. They're going to have to gel as a team. Obviously, Ed DeBrincat could be a huge get for the Detroit Red Wings, because they need the offense. You were hoping that Verano would be that offense. He didn't pan out, obviously, with the reasons that we didn't even contend with. But this is an interesting time for the Detroit Red Wings, especially the Yzer plan, and it has to take a step forward. Period. End of story. And if you like this, I have created a new Red Wings page for all my Red Wings fans. It's called the Red Alert Detroit Red Wings Podcast. You can go and you can like that. You'll get up-to-date news analysis for the Detroit Red Wings. So like that in the description right now, and I'll keep you up to date with all the Detroit Red Wings news that you can handle. So do that now, and we will do that